The election of 1940 opens up in a cloud of uncertainty. As the Nazis march on France, the United States slowly crawls out of a years-long depression. Some voters are looking for change, while others are enthusiastically loyal to incumbent Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. Roosevelt must overcome the stigma of running for a third consecutive term, assuage concerns about his foreign policy outlook, and defend the New Deal. Wilkie is a dark horse nominee and a prominent Republican internationalist who has never held elected office before. He hopes to revive his party's support with an energetic campaign. You might be thinking, wait a second, doesn't that sound familiar? Yeah, that's because I already tried this. And when I said in my first Roosevelt video that I would be doing all of them, you knew this one was coming. But I figured out what went wrong. So, well, thank you for in the comments of that failed attempt. Today, we're going to be running this. Alright, so we're running as Wendell Wilkie. Wilkie is a barefoot Wall Street lawyer who no one expected to take the Republican nomination. An outspoken internationalist, Wilkie has won the hearts and minds of Republican voters with his articulate oratory skills and energetic enthusiasm. However, Wilkie has never held elected office before, something that could concern experienced-minded voters. In addition, Wilkie is an ex-Democrat and a staple of the Republican establishment, something which is off-putting to many Midwestern conservatives. Wilkie will have to run over his party's skeptical right flank and come from behind to defeat the popular Roosevelt. Alright, so last time I tried to go Taft. I'm going with Charles McNary, the real-to-life running mate. Charles McNary, Republican from Ohio. Charles McNary is the Republican Senate leader from Oregon who has survived the Roosevelt landslides. An old-school progressive Republican, McNary is a Western farm leader who has advocated for public power deployment and supported many New Deal programs. He also supports the Lend-Lease proposal. Picking McNary would add experience to the ticket and would provide geographic balance to an Eastern Wall Street lawyer like Wilkie. All right. Many voters, including some Democrats, are concerned about President Roosevelt's decision to run for a third consecutive term. What do you plan on saying to appeal to these voters? Okay, let's see what we're at. Okay, yeah, we need to make some big stances. So, third term, most of the country, it seems mainly the red states. Let's attack it. Roosevelt has spent much of his presidency breaking norms and traditions. It's unbecoming of a president to run for a third consecutive term, and I won't hesitate to say it. Roosevelt's decision to run for a third consecutive term is unprecedented. You've echoed many voters' concerns here. Will your message be before the Republican National Convention? After 8 years of the New Deal, the people are ready for an outsider in government. I will call upon my supporters to turn the pages from the strife of the past decades and open our nation to a newer and brighter future. The New Deal has undermined our liberty and created a dictatorship of the executive. I will exonerate Roosevelt for the waste and corruption he's created, and I will call for a return to clean, efficient, and healthy government. As a former Democrat, I can make the case for the Republican Party as one of pragmatism and moderation. I found liberty in the GOP, and I call upon the American people to do the same. Okay, what's the polls at now? 82. Okay, so that did help. You know what? Let's talk about him switching parties. It could prove to be divisive, but by him talking about his experience, that could be a good thing. So we're going to go with that. The answer definitely falls in line with your previous statements. Behind the scenes, however, conservative delegates in your party are frustrated. Okay. What states could we flip? We could probably flip Wisconsin. Well, you say about your running mate, Senate Minority Leader Charles McNary. Charles McNary has spent his career fighting for the farmers of this country. He will no doubt be a valuable asset in my administration. After such a contentious primary, it's important that we unite the party. As a Western isolationist and tariff man, Charles McNary does just that. Some voters are concerned I don't have enough experience. Charles McNary has been in government for decades, and he will no doubt help run the White House with a steady hand. Let's talk about uniting the party. Your response definitely helps with voters in the Midwest, but McNary isn't particularly known as a conservative. Okay, let's see. That didn't help us out too much. What will your campaign strategy be going into the fall? With war clouds forming abroad, I'll focus on foreign policy. Franklin Roosevelt's one-sided neutrality has left us vulnerable and only raises our chances of going to war. As president, I'll increase our preparedness and do everything possible to keep us out of war. It's important we shore up support on the right. The New Deal has crushed innovation, enriched the unions, and undermined our economy. I want the American people to know it. I'll focus on the president himself, from his attempt to pack the courts to his run for a third term. Franklin Roosevelt has violated the sanctity of our democracy time and time again. As an outsider and a reformer, I will restore honor and dignity to the White House. I won the primary as a moderate and a maverick. I will campaign as such. I will criticize the New Deal for waste, inefficiency, and corruption, and I will promise to run it better. Let's see, what is the stance on... Okay, so the court packing. Yeah, court packing. Basically no one liked the court packing, so let's attack the court packing. Okay, because that is something. So let's attack. Focus on the president himself from his attempt to pack the courts. This is a good message for keeping the party united. Just make sure not to go overboard in your attacks. Roosevelt is still popular with the American people. Okay, we've gained a little bit of ground. Can we flip Minnesota? How will you go about dressing President Roosevelt this fall? Throughout the past 8 years, he has governed as a wannabe dictator. Franklin Roosevelt bills himself as a voice for the working man, but he's a puppet of big city union bosses. Despite the animosity Roosevelt may have with the GOP, I actually like him a lot. He's still enormously popular. Let's focus on the Democrats as a whole. This is probably a smart choice. The Republican base certainly despises Roosevelt, but he's broadly popular with the median voter. Okay, that actually sunk us a little bit. What will you say about this fall about the economic recovery and more broadly the state of the economy? The economy is a major weakness. Roosevelt takes credit for the recovery, but it was on his watch that the economy had collapsed again in 1937. I'm not hesitate to attack him over this. The economy is a major weakness for me and my party. I don't want to mention the Depression, but I will instead talk more broadly about my plans to grow the economy through the power of the free market. Let's do that. This is probably the best way to handle the economic situation. Voters still blame the GOP for the Depression to begin with. Okay, can we flip? This state we could probably flip. So New York's kind of close. That could be a good one. You have professed basic support for the New Deal, but criticized it for being inefficient and wasteful. Conservatives are suspicious of your stance, while Democrats don't trust you. Care to elaborate on your position here? We cannot afford to alienate the right any further. I will stress that my calls for efficiency means a rollback of the New Deal. The economy is on the up and up, and there's no reason we need all these wasteful programs any longer. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Under no circumstances will I support a rollback of the New Deal. I only seek to pass sensible, market-based reforms that will improve the efficiency of these programs. Anything else is a Democrat talking point. Roosevelt loves to talk a big game about economic security. So did Hitler, Mussolini, and all the dictators of the world who promised economic security in exchange for their freedom. The people of those countries got security, all right, but what cost? Okay, so the New Deal is widely supported. So he seeks conservatives are disappointed in response, but all things considered, this is a safer answer. Moderates are reassured by your statement. Okay, we got 111 currently. Do you have anything to say regarding the passage of the Reorganization Act, which, among other things, created the executive office of the president? The bill is just one more step towards the dictatorship of the executive. The new powers afforded to the executive office are vulnerable to misuse, and this bill defies the principle of the separation of powers. I oppose this law. This is actually something I agree with the president on. As I've said before, it's important we have more efficiency in the government. This bill, will allow for more effective and more productive government. I'm glad to have seen it passed. I support the premise behind this law, but I simply believe it's too expansive of a bill. As president, I will sign another law to curb some of the new powers afforded to the office of the president. Is there something in there? No, interesting. Let's go. I support the premise. Good hedge. The bill is unpopular with the GOP, but you don't want to risk coming across as a Republican hack. Okay. We can flip Illinois potentially. The last major New Deal legislation that was passed was the Fair Labor Standards Act, which outlawed child labor, established a federal minimum wage, and mandated extra overtime pay, among other things. Did you support this act, and would you support further action on this issue in your third term? Okay. Now here's the thing: right. Let's not bring this one up. There's nothing wrong with staying quiet on this. One of Roosevelt's most ambitious New Deal projects, the Tennessee Valley Authority, or the TVA, oversaw a major expansion of federal electric power in the Tennessee Valley. As a utility executive, you have spent much of your recent career attacking this program. How will you address the TVA in your campaign this fall? I may have opposed the TVA in the past, but we've seen the benefits that have come from much needed rural electrification that it has brought. I will promise to upkeep the TVA in my administration. I oppose the TVA because I believe it is the wrong solution for rural electrification. Government should work with the private sector, not against it. In my administration, I will instead pursue subsidies and tax credits for rural electrical development. I oppose the TVA because I believe this kind of intervention in our economy is wrong. We need to create good conditions for a stable energy market, and the TVA is a step in the wrong direction. Let's go with work with the private sector. This is a good response if you want to appeal to a wide variety of voters without walking back on your statements. Okay. We just went to Illinois. Let's go to Minnesota. Throughout the past 8 years, the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the so-called Tree Army, has consistently been one of the most popular New Deal programs. Will you be addressing the CCC in your campaign this fall? Let's see. The Civilian Conservation Corps has put millions of decent young men to work revitalizing our natural resources and our infrastructure. I support the president's policies. It's certainly popular, and I'm glad for the young men who have earned a living through the program, but with storm clouds brewing in Europe, I don't think investing in this agency is a good idea. This kind of pointless welfare program has been paying young men to dig holes. What kind of logic is that? Besides, with the ongoing war in Europe, the last thing we should do is spending more money on these kind of handouts. Okay. Foreign policy. Now, here's an interesting thing is, right, most of these have to do with war clouds brewing. But let's say this, right? The New Deal, which we're really gonna have to deal with the New Deal a lot throughout this saga. But it says it's one of the most popular New Deal programs. And Wilkie wanted to sort of make them more efficient. So Considering the popularity of the CCC, there's nothing wrong with this response. On the other hand, conservatives are upset. Okay. That didn't help us out. Last year, the president signed into law an amendment to the Neutrality Acts that allowed for the sale of arms on belligerents on a cash and carry basis. Some isolationists in your party opposed the move. How do you feel about this bill? Our first line of defense against war with Germany is the British. I'm happy we signed this law into act, but President Roosevelt is correct in his support of this, for the sale of military goods without the need for cash. I will advocate to the American people for such a policy. President Roosevelt's one-sided neutrality only serves to increase our risk of war. I oppose this policy, and I will oppose any policy going forward that threatens our neutrality. Our best defense against war with Germany is the British. They need all the help they can get. And I'm happy President Roosevelt introduced the sale of much-needed military equipment to our allies across the Atlantic. All right, so let's go with this answer pleases the isolationists in your party. Okay. I'm really going to have to work to sink it, Roosevelt, aren't I? Last month, France fell to the Nazis and Germany took control of the country. Now the UK stands alone against Nazi Germany. All you do as president is to deal with the Nazi aggression in Europe. I'm shocked and dismayed by the collapse of France in the face of German aggression. I will voice my support for a buildup of our military and our preparedness. We must be vigilant against any foreign aggression. I'm shocked and dismayed by the collapse of France in the face of German aggression. I will send my regards to the British in their fight with oppression. I will voice my support for the cash and carry policy. I'm shocked and dismayed. We must remain vigilant against any threats to the U.S. neutrality, and as president, I will do just that. How many good people have to fall to the Nazi dictatorship before we do something? Enough is enough. I will voice support for more direct military aid to the British. We can no longer safely isolate ourselves from the rest of the world. Let's remain vigilant. This answer pleases the isolationists in your party. Just lately, a coalition of interventionists have proposed the creation of a peacetime military draft. Would you support the establishment of such a policy? Desperate times call for desperate measures. Having a well-staffed military will help increase our preparedness and will deter hostile powers from launching any acts of aggression. A military draft will certainly help increase our preparedness. Such blanket recruitment could risk further aggression by foreign powers. I support this bill, but only with reservations on who is eligible to sign up and how many recruits we enlist. The idea of a peacetime draft in this country is unprecedented. President Roosevelt has no reason to recruit our boys into military service unless he plans on taking us to war. I oppose this bill. Okay. Most moderates are not, and that sunk me. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to need to... Roosevelt's so-called court packing debacle from 3 years ago is still on the minds of many voters. How do you plan on addressing this in your campaign? It's old news. It's a real weakness. I will attack him relentlessly. I will talk about this issue. Let's attack him on this. There's a strong answer to fire up the base. That got me 5 more electoral votes. In light of the Germans' notoriously harsh treatment of Jews, many European Jews have sought refuge in the States, bringing the immigration restrictions passed by President Coolidge into question. Will you call for any reform of the immigration quotas for European Jews? I have sympathy for the plight of European Jews, but isolationist sentiment is too strong for us to do this. I instead support Harold Inkel's plan from 2 years ago. We should loosen restrictions on Jewish immigrants, but only if they settle in the Alaskan territories. These immigration restrictions go against every democratic ideal our nation holds near and dear. I have sympathy for the plight of the European Jews, but isolationist sentiment is too strong to do this. I do, however, support the Wagner-Rogers bill for the settlement of Jewish children. At the very least, the youngest immigrants should be allowed a chance. Okay. You know what? Let's go with my sympathies go out to all who seek refuge from oppression, but I'm not sure it's a good idea to push for this. Most Americans, especially my party, are opposed to letting more immigrants in, particularly the Jews from Europe. This may be for the best, all things considered. There's been nonstop radio coverage lately of the German Luftwaffe's bombing campaign on Britain. How will you respond to this? The new development will only galvanize isolationist sentiment. I will speak of the need to remain vigilant against any involvement in the European war. Will galvanize support for the Allies. I will call on President Roosevelt to invite internationalist Republicans into his cabinet so that our party may have a say in foreign policy as well. This new development has horrified me to my core. I will continue to press support for the Allied cause and for the cash and carry program. This new development will only galvanize public support for the Allies. I will call for full agreement on military aid. You know what? We're going really close with Wilkie in real life. We need to do something big to shake this up. So, let's do this. This new development will only galvanize public support. I will call on President Roosevelt to invite internationalist Republicans into his cabinet so that our party may have a say in foreign policy as well. It's a good proactive step that allows you to show your commitment to bipartisanship. That didn't help us out too much. Franklin Roosevelt has criticized you for your association with Wall Street. Secretary of the Interior, Harold Ickles, has even mocked you as a simple, barefoot lawyer from Wall Street. Many working people have thrown rotten fruit and eggs at you as you campaign. How do you plan on responding to these attacks? We need to turn the tables on Roosevelt. I will accuse him of being in the pockets of corrupt political machines and unscrupulous union bosses. We will contrast this with my clean record. Roosevelt has a point in what he's saying. My work on Wall Street is not very popular. As I campaign, I will make sure to emphasize my compassion for the laborers of this country and my humble Midwestern origins. I can't, for the life of me, understand why being a barefoot Wall Street lawyer is such a bad thing. I'm a hard-working outsider, untainted by the backroom dealings of Washington, and I will proudly proclaim it. Okay. So, here's the interesting thing, is we have three strategies. We can attack Roosevelt. We can emphasize us being an outsider. Or we can acknowledge... Here's the thing, right? I like this part. But, right, is it going to be an issue? Let's go for the compassion of the laborers and humble Midwestern origins. It's a good response if you want to mitigate the effects of these attacks. We're going to have to work really hard to sink Roosevelt. The Japanese, in their quest for dominance of the Pacific, have come under fire for such things as the USS Panay incident and their brutal treatment of Chinese civilians in Nanking. Will you issue any statements this fall condemning Japanese actions? The atrocities we've seen the Japanese commit in the Eastern Theater are an abomination unto mankind. I'll call for greater military aids. No. The atrocities we've seen the Japanese commit in the Eastern Theater are an abomination. I've stood opposed to Japanese imperialism for years now, and I stand opposed today. It isn't prudent to address issues that are a few years old. I will reiterate my support for safeguarding our national interest in China, but nothing more. Okay. Let's actually go with the middle answer, which is that one. Of course, this issue is a little stale now, but by taking a strong stance, you've certainly won a moral victory. Throughout the past 8 years, President Roosevelt has pursued a so-called good neighbor policy in Latin America to create better relations in the region. Just recently, he has called for better cultural understanding of Latin Americans as well. Do you support his actions here, and will you continue this policy for your administration? Latin America is not a particularly important issue this campaign. I won't make any mention of Roosevelt's actions here. In light of the aggression we're seeing from Europe, I don't think it's prudent to try to involve ourselves with Latin America. As president, I will scale back these attempts and reassert American autonomy. Has allowed us to achieve cooperation and harmony with our neighbors in the South. You know what? Let's go with scale back. Isolationists in your party are pleased with this response. Tensions have been quietly simmering between the U.S. and Mexico over the last few years, especially in regards to Mexican nationalization of oil and appropriation of U.S.-owned agricultural land. How will you address this feud, if at all, in your campaign? Like Roosevelt, I want to show the Mexican government my commitment to strong relations. I will personally meet with President Cardenas to express my desire for goodwill between our countries. The Mexican government's anti-Catholicism flies in the face of American values, and their actions don't make the case any better. I think we ought to quietly address this conflict. There's no reason for it to become a major issue. At the very least, Roosevelt seems to agree with you. Just recently, Roosevelt received a bump in the polls for signing the Destroyers to Bases Agreement. The British exchanged military base rights in the Caribbean for the transfer of 50 U.S. warships. Do you support Roosevelt's actions? We must show the British we are willing to support their cause and the cause for democracy the world throughout. I support Roosevelt's actions. I do support this agreement, but that doesn't change the fact that it defies the Neutrality Acts. It is a symbolic gesture anyway. I will, however, meet private with Prime Minister Churchill to express my support for their cause. This policy openly defies the Neutrality Acts, and as such would only risk inviting aggression from the Axis powers. We're already selling military goods for the British. Roosevelt's actions here only risk our involvement in the European war. This answer pleases the isolationists in your party, but on the other hand, most Americans are not in agreement with your position. Okay, Wisconsin. Many conservative Republicans in Congress and in the Republican National Committee are still suspicious of your campaign. Will you say anything to appease them this fall? Just as committed. I will appeal to our common opposition in Franklin Roosevelt. The idea that, let's appeal. Mentioning Roosevelt is always a good way to keep your party united. Roosevelt has pursued a military buildup as part of his arsenal of democracy. Is full of half measures. I'm glad he has increased our preparedness for transparent political gain. It's a good way for you to attack Roosevelt without abandoning your ICE internationalism. Okay. This campaign enters its final day. What region of the country will you spend your remaining time and resources on? I will campaign in the Midwest. I will campaign in the Northeast. I will campaign on the West Coast. I will campaign in the Plains and Mountain States. Okay. Let's campaign in the Midwest. Hopefully you can win these states and pull off a victory. Good luck, Mr. Wilkie. Sorry you've lost the 1940 election. It was always going to be hard to beat an incumbent, especially one as popular as Franklin Roosevelt. Your one consolation is that your leadership in the GOP may just have saved the British. It appears Franklin Roosevelt could have had enough support for his Lend-Lease proposal. After all, your political trajectory is uncertain right now. You still hold no elected office. Perhaps you could run for a position in Indiana as the official leader of your party and advocate of loyal opposition. Perhaps President Roosevelt could ask for you in his government. Election map. Overall details. All right. Now we're going to try to sink Roosevelt. And we got to go with Henry Wallace again. Many voters are concerned about your decision to run for a third consecutive term. What do you plan on saying to assuage voters' fears of your decision to break precedent? All right. We already have presidential term limits. They're called elections. Even if there's an element of truth to what you're saying, this is a rather dismissive answer for such a big issue. And doing that helped us significantly. Will your message be, we will stand at the crossroads of destiny. We must make a choice between democracy and dictatorship, freedom and slavery, decency and debauchery. Okay. Willingness to answer the call. I am the sitting president. Okay, wait. Oh, wait, we've already succeeded. Wilkie's winning. We just act like we don't care. There we go. There we go. Okay. And we are glitched. What will your campaign strategy be? We want to stay in California. The Republican convention has stunned the nation. Their nominee is Wendell Willkie, a Wall Street warrior and lawyer and internationalist who has never held elected office. How do you plan on addressing him this fall? Wendell Willkie is a popular and charismatic figure, is the most prominent Republican internationalist. Storm clouds. Respect. Okay, that actually didn't help us out too much. Alright. Okay, what do you say about the economic recovery? Interesting response. Using the recent recession to attack conservatism. Okay. If we can just sink Roosevelt enough. Okay. Wendell Willkie has professed support for your New Deal, but criticizes it for being inefficient and wasteful. Republicans love to talk a big game about efficiency. The funny thing is, they claim to support the New Deal, but they always promise to do it better. I actually think Wendell Willkie has a good point here. This will help you with some moderates in the Midwest, but some come across as a flip-flopper. Okay. Do you have anything to say regarding the passage last year of the Reorganization Act? Republicans keep going on. I'm glad we were able to pass this bill. I don't think it went far enough. Some diehard fans are happy with us, but Republicans are having a field day over your executive dictatorship. You win some, you lose some. Okay. If we can just keep him with the... Okay. Would you support? Let's not support it. This is not inspiring stuff to your voters. The Labor vote is disappointed. Oh no, we're winning. We don't want to win. We want to lose. One of your most ambitious. If we agree with Willkie, has helped us develop a much needed. That being said, your reluctance to defend the TVA does not help in the face of Willkie's attacks. Okay, yes, we're back to losing, which this is one instance where we want to lose. Throughout the past 8 years, oh. Okay, we bring up the war. This strikes a good balance. Oh no. Oh no, that helped us out big time. Last year, you signed into law an amendment to the Neutrality Act. Okay. Man, that's not good. Last month, I say, well, let's just... Okay. Again, this proposal simply goes too far. But that didn't help out our support. Okay. It's a bit of a divisive issue. Oh man, that's not good. We don't want to be picking the best options here. Some voters are still weary of your attempt to pack the courts 3 years ago. I stand by my elements. Many Americans are furious at your stances. You've created a headache for your advisors. Americans overwhelmingly rejected your court packing scheme, and your defiance has caused a noticeable slide in the polls. Yes. Wahahaha. In light of the Germans' notoriously harsh treatment of Jews, many European Jews have sought refuge in the States. Okay. Your principles are admirable, but you definitely hold a minority viewpoint. Most voters are not ready to reopen the borders. We're about to have the first outsider president here. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Your stance still goes too far. Your opponent has accused you of not taking. If anyone's opposed, it's Republicans. Oh no. Okay, Oregon. Japanese. Isn't prudent. Starting your first term, you and Secretary Hull oversaw the establishment of the Good Neighbor policy. Nelson Rockefeller of New York has agreed to lead the new office, and he says, okay, that's not good. Oh, we're waiting. We're still succeeding and losing. Okay. Tensions have been quietly simmering between the U.S. and Mexico. Okay. Good choice. The British are offering military base rights in exchange. Isolationists decry this agreement, but you've earned a lot of good press coverage. Oh no. But we're actually succeeding in trying to sink him. Some conservative Democrats are still angry at your involvement in the Democrat primaries 2 years ago. Okay. I don't intend. Okay. Your harsh rebuke of the conservatives in your party is not helping party unity. Volke has been changing course on his line of attack. He has charged you with actively trying to involve the U.S. in the European war, while you say to assure the American people, most of whom are still generally isolationists, that you will work to keep America out of the war. Read my lips, I won't send American boys into foreign wars. I'll do anything. Off the record, our involvement in this war is not an if, it's a when. But the American people are acutely isolationist, so I have no choice but to promise I will keep us out of war. Okay. Alright, final question should be... Actually, we don't want to go there. We want to... Planes. Okay. We're going to move. Sorry, you've lost the 1940 election. Yes! Your bid for an unprecedented third term has failed. Despite leading in all polls, Wilkie has emerged as the underdog winner. Hopefully he can keep his promises to not turn back on most of the New Deal. Thankfully for you, Wilkie is an internationalist and will likely work with Democrats to pass aid for Britain. As for you, your political career is over. Democrats have kept their muscular congressional majorities, so Wilkie will likely have to be a bit more constrained in what he can do. You always hoped to retire to Hyde Park so you could spend the rest of your years building your presidential library. Look at that. Kind of crazy. We won with just that portion of the country, and Roosevelt got Texas and California. Overall results? Nope. But, hey. That's 3 games there. Of the FDR elections. So far, I've not managed to win as any of Roosevelt's opponents, but I have managed to secure victory twice by causing Roosevelt to lose. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.